Good morning, everybody. We will just wait for the webinar to go live. There's a slight delay, and then just remember that if you do want to ask questions, you can put that in the chat. There we go. Welcome, everybody. This is the Digital Transformation in Building Operations webinar with myself, Paul Storm. I work for a company called Micrographics. We are situated in Cape Town, South Africa. So digital transformation at the moment is quite a big topic. It is something that is busy happening. The industry is transforming overseas much faster than what it is within South Africa, but that does not say that South Africa is not also getting on board. The building operations really is what the aim is, and to understand this we're going to learn the basic ideas, which is to unify data to unlock insights and to optimize facilities operations. So what you'll find is that currently the data that is within the industry is not really utilized in the majority of cases, and we spend a lot of effort and time putting everything together, and then it's not getting used. And so what the idea is going into the future, very much like within the engineering sector, we will want to use that data. On the agenda then for today is just a general introduction, then navigating the future of facility management. I think that's of interest to everybody. Then how to bridge the data gap, and advancing transformations in the building operations lifecycle. Is there a unified facilities management solution? A summary and a question and answer. And on our way through this webinar, we'll just have a general discussion as to what we are referring to. Maybe with a view of some of the applications that are applicable. Right, the introduction, it's basically a journey to design and construct buildings better, faster, and more sustainably. This is a quote from Dean Stanbury, the International Facilities Management Association chairman. He says, there needs to be more collaboration between the architecture, engineering, and construction and the facilities management relative to the building lifecycle management. Architecture, engineering, and construction owns a project for 18 to 36 months. That is, a 3-year time horizon for conceiving, designing, detailing, constructing a facility. But the operations deals with it for the next 75 to 100 years. Value engineering in projects will frequently impact the effectiveness of future operations. Technology is no longer a constraint, but the industry must adopt a lifecycle management mindset that spans its policies, standards, and procedures. Okay, so quite a loaded sentence there. If we have to look at that in plain language, it says that there isn't enough collaboration between those that design and construct a building and those that operate the building. Hidden within this message is the knowledge that the majority of the money that you can save or make, for that matter, is over the lifespan of the building. So it's very much like the development of a person's career, or if you want another analogy, if you are planting a forest to harvest in the future. So while you personally might not be there to reap the rewards, it might be there in 75 to 100 years' time. The difference is this is over, and this is why it's more the analogy with a human being or a a person or a celebrity or whatever. You can call it what you will, but a human being, you might spend 3 years training that human being, and then they might then be active for the next 75 to 100 years. In this case, it's a building. So over that span, that building has the ability to save money, to make money, and there is a disconnect between those that operate the building and those that design the building. And of course, that isn't conducive to making money, which is really what most people are in this industry for. Then there are the global issues like climate change, carbon credits, carbon taxes. So globally, about 40% of the energy-related carbon emissions come from a combination of building operations emissions and carbon released from materials production and building construction. That is a lot of energy, 40%, almost half. But contrast that to the data. Over 95% of data generated during the design and construction is lost or underutilized. This data could be useful for building owners and operators for facilities maintenance and management, some of it in any case. And replicating these asset databases consume unneeded resources. Just an FYI, that is what Andrew Anagnos from Autodesk has done. When he came in as Autodesk CEO, a lot of the research and development went into the Autodesk Construction Cloud. And he unified the databases on the Autodesk Construction Cloud. The previous BIM 360 was disconnected. So we can now refer to something that we call a common data environment on ACC. Right? And then as building portfolios become more sophisticated, facilities managers will need to rely on data more heavily. To address this growing concern, Autodesk and Eptura aim to deliver solutions for the entire lifecycle management of a building. Now, I'm old enough to remember that we used to have something called building operations in BIM 360. Autodesk no longer has such a offering, but Eptura does. And we will see how everything fits together. I'll try and build the jigsaw for you so you see exactly what everything looks like. Facility managers can use this data to make informed decisions about everything from maintenance and operations, enhanced cleaning and hygiene protocols that was, or still is, in certain instances applicable during COVID, but also within the healthcare sector, which is of course a large sector of the building industry. Improved security to space utilization and energy consumption. 95% of the data generated during design and construction is lost or underutilized. That is enormous. And similarly, 40% of global energy-related carbon, that is enormous. So it's not just in the building industry, it's not just a phrase or a fad or anything like that. It's a real situation. So data is not getting used, a lot of energy is getting generated or used as well. All right, so firstly, what is digital transformation? So we've spoken about digital transformation, and what is it? It's integrating digital technology. Digital technology is anything to do with computers. The typical reference to ones and zeros, it's a digit, it's one or a zero, and that is how information is driven, but it's the digital technology into all business operations. All business operations, by moving away from traditional silos meaning that we work in isolation, and legacy systems, things that existed in the past, maybe if you think 100 years ago from now, it's 1924. What happened in 1924? Well, it was just after the First World War. If you have to go and look at New York, you'll probably find that some of the biggest or some of the most famous skyscrapers wouldn't have been constructed yet. Some of them might have, right? But think about what we saw earlier. 75 to 100 years. So, legacy systems are very much applicable here. And the transformation would be, all right, let's take something that we used, for argument's sake, in the 1970s, 80s, 90s, early 2000s, 2010s, we're now in 2020, but let's take whatever existed back then and transform that into something that we can use today. What might that entail? Well, you could even draw up a building from scratch and represent it with a digital representation. You wouldn't have been able to do that in the 1920s. You can do that today, of course, but that's the extreme example, right? Legacy systems towards connected, data-driven, and cloud-based workflows. Right. Connected, meaning we have the internet. The internet connects us. The platforms that we use connect us. Autodesk has such platforms. Other companies have such platforms. Different databases can connect to each other. In addition to that, the Internet of Things, where we connect transducers or measuring equipment to streams of data to create historical data and pick up anomalies that can base our decision making or taken as a statistical entity can inform us of our decisions with regards to optimization and other things that would make us money. The idea here is that it's data-driven and cloud-based, and we want to improve efficiency, collaboration, and value delivery. Everybody likes efficiency. Ultimately, it impacts the bottom line. This involves using modern tools and processes like cloud-connected platforms, referring over here specifically to the Autodesk Construction Cloud, to connect different departments and stakeholders, to enable real-time data sharing, and to automate tasks. Some of us, I know, are familiar with what we are talking about. We have been involved in projects where we are using the Autodesk Construction Cloud to its fullest extent, using a subscription like Autodesk Collaborate Pro. That is commonly accepted within our industry now. We have moved away from operating in an office to having a hybrid or a remote way of working. All right, so this is quite recent. This is from 2025 data. I got this from an Autodesk University report. This is globally, although I did look through the different sectors, especially the emerging basically Africa and Europe versus Asia versus America. They're pretty much all the same. And this was a question to the industry. It said the majority of organizations realize 50% return of investment from digital transformations. So 72% says that the company reputation has improved because they adopted digital solutions. Right? I'm not somebody to buy into hype. I don't like hype around issues. However, I am very excited by technology. And so in this case, it is interesting to me that there's obviously some hype in the industry, but there's also a lot of value that's getting here. All right, so the expansion of products and services, 68%. It's changed the way in which people work. It's given them the ability to offer new services and perhaps meet the needs of the industry that hasn't been serviced before. And they've got improved data exchanges, 67% of them. I'll never forget this. I was in a very, very large project, some of the biggest on the planet, and one of the engineering departments had been working with outdated data for a week. It's an entire engineering department that was doing work, wasting the money and wasting the time, and ultimately a lot of money was lost. And why did it happen? It happened because they had the wrong files. They were working on the wrong files. They were under the impression they were the right files. And that's why data exchanges can be so vitally important. That's one of the reasons why they are so vitally important. Why do we work safely? Why do we work under the BIM level 2 protocols? Why do we have these protocols that we work according to? It's so that we don't make these mistakes and waste money. But you can definitely see there that customer satisfaction, productivity and innovation follows a general sort of trend, but in the middle there, about 36, 38, 40%, make it 40% says it considerably improved. Those that say significantly improved, not that much, about 30%, not far behind as well, and moderately improved. So you can see it's definitely the median is around about considerably improved. That doesn't augur badly for the future, because we can see that globally it makes sense. Right. Then what is a digitally mature company? They are defined as those that are approaching the goal or have achieved the goal of their digital transformation journey. They are more likely to have experienced above average or exceptional performance, 30%. More likely to have increased or strongly increased investment in the past 3 years, 35%. More likely to agree that they are prepared for the future, and more likely to have kept up very well with change in the industry. So here we can see something interesting. Make it a round number of 30%. So 30% of digitally mature companies have had major successes. Now that's quite a large success rate. A lot of this can be seen almost as if it's a new business venture, for want of a better analogy. And to have a 30% success rate is extremely good. It doesn't mean that everybody is going to see the returns on their investments. Some, the majority, will probably break even. Some will lose. Unfortunately, that is the nature of business. But 30% is not bad, right? But it goes with the contracts. The cost of digital transformation is a growing challenge for many organizations. 44%, half of the leaders say it is their main barrier. But given the outsized returns organizations are seeing from their digital transformation investments, cost-cutting measures could have equally outsized negative effects if they impact technology initiatives. So, in essence, what it's saying is the following. It takes an investment, it takes money to achieve your goal. However, achieving the goal also means that you will make money, or there's a high likelihood that you will make money. Nothing is ever guaranteed, but in business nothing ever is. But there's a good chance that investing in the technology is going to give you your return. And these are industry-wide polls that were taken. Obviously, within your own personal industry, that might vary. Then this also follows on from that. So what is cost and talent are the biggest barriers to digital transformation? So what are we looking at here? Between 35 and 45% says it's expensive. Then about 35% says there's time, you need time to invest in new tools and ways of working. Lack of knowledge and technical skills to implement digital solutions, 30 to 35, 30 to 32%, somewhere around there. Limited capabilities in the tools currently available, so just below 30, between 30 and 25. And a resistance to changing established workflows. That's only about 25 to 27%. So what lessons can we take from here? A, it's expensive, and there's time needed to invest in new tools and ways of working, yes, and there's a lack of knowledge or technical skills to implement digital solutions, yes. Limited capabilities in the tools currently available. yes, and resistance to changing established workflows. All of these items are so relevant within our industry. I have the privilege of being in contact with some of our clients and having been involved in their businesses, sometimes transforming or helping them transform from a solution like AutoCAD to Revit, or from some other package to Revit and BIM. All of these items are relevant. So cost initially, yes. Once the cost is overcome, then time needed in new ways of working. Now, this is a very important one. What we typically do is we'll investigate a company, identify a project. We call it typically a pilot project. And then we would say, let's identify individuals that can take that up. You don't need such large teams to adopt this technology to begin with. You just need a team that won't let go, a dogged determination to complete or at least initiate some workflow that can do this. And by doing that, if you have a large company, and not everybody does, and unfortunately that's also a reality, is that smaller companies, unless they already have or buy or purchase the knowledge, the skills, and that is available as well, they won't automatically be able to just click their fingers and it will transform. It doesn't work like that. It is a time, it is a learning, it is a living culture, or living documents that inform a culture of working, a way of working that needs to be adopted. And so this time that is needed to invest in you, that is a very, very big constraint. But what does work, get the experts in if you don't have them, or if you do have people that can wield that within your company. Identify a project, a typical project that you can test the technologies on, prove the technologies, and then build up from there. What we do not recommend is taking an entire company and rolling it out across the entire company in one go, because that typically drops. There's usually a drop in productivity before there is a rise in productivity. And cash flow being so important, you don't want to close the business because you adopted new technology. Then, lack of knowledge or skills to implement digital solutions. I don't know what it's like in your part of the world. In South Africa, we definitely have a very, very good operators within the country, but we also have a lot of people leaving the country for better opportunities overseas. Although in the modern age, we also find that a lot of people within our country are also doing work on projects overseas. And the technology lends itself to this. The fact that we are connected over the internet means that we do not have to be involved in projects that are only within our own company or within our own office. We could be working together in the same Revit model with somebody that is sitting on the other side of the world in Australia. I've been involved in a project, for instance, where we were from Australia, we were from Cape Town, South Africa, we were in Cyprus, and we were in England. And all 4 or 5 of us were in the same model at the same time, communicating with each other. The time zones were a bit difficult, but there are ways and means to manage that. Or even if you are a global company and you have different hubs that are connected using bridges, the technology is interesting, but we don't want to get stuck on technical details. Suffice to say that we can have a distributed architecture of individuals working together with each other, regardless of their location on the planet, provided that they have sufficient internet access, computer hardware and software. Then we can incorporate them into our workflow if that is our goal. And then limited capabilities in the tools currently available. That is sometimes a big one. Software evolves over time, and quite often you'll also find third-party vendors that will offer you what you need, but it's not a one-stop shop. It's not a one solution that does everything. So then that's a valid point, but software evolves, but sometimes one has to be patient. If it doesn't have such a large impact on one's bottom line, then that's fine. and resistance to changing established workflows. This best is top down. If you can get the directors to buy into a situation, or even better, an owner-operator, a corporation, a government, then that resistance goes away. Because if it's mandated, then you do not have an option. Approaching it from the other side is difficult. So if you're within the supply chain and you have a client that does not want to buy into the solution, then you're probably not going to win. Or if you are within a company and you do not have the ability to influence the decision makers, then that is also an issue. Right? And so you'll find one of the interesting things is that employees will tend to gravitate towards companies that offer them a growth path or a opportunity to work with these digital solutions, so that they can also incorporate that into their day-to-day operations. All right, so that said, that just gives you an introduction. Then how about the future? How about the future of facilities management? Let's look at that. Current challenges revolve around fragmented data processes and perceived cost of implementation. That fragmented data process, that is a massive one. There are positives and negatives. I hate to say pro and con, but you know, if you've sunk millions of dollars or whatever currency you work in, if you've taken a large amount of money and invested it in your intellectual property, your models, your families, your libraries, your ways of working, your documentation, and if you're of the opinion that you don't want to share your models with the other participants on that project, then that might be an issue, right? So we typically find that argument within the industry because people steal from each other. However, it's more a collaborative workflow than anything else, and there are ways that we have found to work around this. For instance, just for argument's sake, all right? If you're working with a Revit model and you've got a Collaborate Pro, you've got your own hub, you work in isolation within your silo, you have an arrangement with the owner-operator, corporation, government, whomever, that you will hand over the Revit model at the end of the project under certain conditions, but while you're operating on an open platform, that you will only share industry foundation class, non-reverse engineered models with the rest of the team, then there will be, okay, alternatively, if we don't use those bridges in where you've got complete control over your own IP, then we could say, all right, rather let's put in probity agreements between the guys that are working on the project. We all try and work together nicely and say we won't overstep the boundaries. And then, of course, if somebody does overstep the boundary, then we can always make the decision amongst ourselves, well, this guy didn't work nicely with us on this project and he's not going to be on the next project, or they are not going to be on the next project, whomever, corporate entity or whatever it is. And so you'll find also that the responsible companies, people that respect other people's intellectual property, tend to work together on projects. It's never a nice experience when you're on a project and there's fighting going on. It's not conducive to a good project. But anyway, so that's one part of fragmented data. The other part of fragmented data is that the platforms are disconnected from each other. So I was thinking about this in detail around asset management recently with machinery on project. So a typical thing would be we are designing, we choose, for argument's sake, an air handling unit on the roof. It's quite an expensive piece of equipment. Maybe it's got HEPA filters, it's got some pumps, it's got some heat exchangers, some plate heat exchangers. It's quite expensive with the fans and everything else that's going on. All right, so it's quite an expensive piece of equipment, and it's got a lifespan. It must be maintained, it must be switched out, it must be monitored, everything that you can think about from a facilities management perspective would be applicable to that air handling unit that's sitting on the roof, rooftop air handling unit. Great. So during the process, we decide we're going to choose this air handling unit, but we also get documentation with that air handling unit. It's no longer just a Revit issue. We now have maintenance manuals. We have a whole bunch of things that's connected to this, insurance, warranties, depreciation. We've got, call it, all right? So at what stage must we replace the unit so that it's cheaper than fixing it all the time? Which parameters should be measured with transducer? Should we measure the power going in, the water going in, the air quality? Do we, there's so much that we can go into. But point is, all right, so now you get the documentation. Is it a printed manual? If so, can you get it in digital? If it's not in digital, can you scan it? Yes, you can. Can you get it in PDF? Yes, you can. All right. Can you create a submittal for that on Autodesk Construction Cloud? Yes, you can. All right. So now you can start collecting all the data that is connected with that air handling unit. And then what? Right? You need it for your digital twin. So the fragmented data process, the idea is that we build up the information as we go along. The future of facilities management is defined by a shift from a reactive operational role to a strategic data-driven function. So interestingly enough, within micrographics itself, we've recently been through such an exercise, just from a completely different perspective, where we want to also be a data-driven enterprise. But of course, in our case, it's more got to do with our clients and their needs than what it is with a facility. But, all right, that is specifically also applicable to maintenance. So with maintenance, you don't want to wait until something breaks. If something breaks, processes stop, and sometimes damage is done that needs to be fixed. And so we want to be proactive. What does that entail? Two things. One is scheduled maintenance, always important. It's like taking your car to the shop. And then also predictive maintenance. What is that? Data-driven function. What is that? We measure the power. The power to the air handling unit goes up. Great. Maybe we have vibration sensors which can pinpoint a bearing. It's usually what they do on helicopters and things like that. Helicopters, you can never predict when they're falling out of the sky, but if you listen to the vibrations on the gearboxes, you can say when something is going, or you can maybe pinpoint the gear or the pinion that is responsible. Maybe air handling units are not that complicated, but you can still measure things, and you can say, right, something's going wrong with that air handling unit before it breaks, and you go, right, let's go and figure out what it is, and let's fix it before it breaks. Good idea, right? Key drivers: integration of established and new technology. We have established, but there are also new technologies. How do we integrate them? How do we bring them together? What is the interface that we do there? Right? That's why the digital twin is so important. How to connect and mine data across the building life cycle. We want to mine the data with artificial intelligence coming in now. It's going to be exciting to see how much is hype and how much is not, how much is part of the bubble, how much is not. But we want to find out what are the relevant things that we can gain from that data. Too often people just let the data go and they say, all right, if something breaks, we fix it. Okay, but by that time it's too late. Push for sustainability, 28%. 28%. So we saw earlier, 40% comes from buildings. Well, 28 of that 40%. So 28% globally of energy-related carbon comes from building operations. That means heating and cooling, either in cold areas or in hot areas. Hot areas to cool, cold areas to heat. And I normally refer to this image because the image tells us everything, right? This comes from the old PASTA 192 capital delivery documentation. And just referring to the non-graphical data and the documentation, right? Usually we used to have the sawtooth pattern over here where we lose data as we go through the different phases. Now, with the Autodesk Construction Cloud, this is all connected And we can have this idealized situation where we start building up from the brief. Okay, we are going to need a rooftop air handling unit. There's the concept. We've drawn in basically how big it's going to be, or blah, blah, blah. Then we come to the definition and we say, right, this is the air handling unit that we are going to use. Then we go into design. Right, let's say how this air handling unit is going to be supported, where can the people gain access to it and everything like that. And then we go into build and commission. Right, who installed it? What is the warranty? What issues were encountered during the construction? Do we have a laser scan to tell us exactly what is the reality capture? Was that designed backwards into our design model? Handover and closeout. When it was commissioned, was it tested? What was the performance like? Was it underperforming or overperforming, or was it just perfect? And then during the operation, what's getting monitored? How's it getting monitored? How's it getting picked up? Who's doing the preventative maintenance? Who's doing the planned maintenance? How much reactive maintenance is there? If there was reactive maintenance, how can we fix that? What went wrong? Do we need to monitor something else? And then this part over here, that goes on for your 75 to 100 years. This takes us 36 months. Right. And the operation within the supply chain looks something like this, where we've got, and this works the wrong way around. So imagine you're maybe, you speak Arabic, or you read from right to left, all right? So here you can see CapEx approval, supplier selection, target costs, handover, and evaluation. So we're going from this side to that side, and we've got different tiers over here, just tiers in terms of the supply chain. So there's the design lead, they hand off to the contractor lead, and then it comes into operation. But just think about this in terms of a typical South African situation. I come across this quite often. It's like, well, you can have all this nice technology and whatever, but the guy that's going to install your conduits or your electrical terminals, or the guy that does the tiling or whatever, they don't have access to this technology. They don't really care to use it either, right? And so this is where our employers, or our exchange information request, the modern term for it is exchange information request, and how we are going to, well, let's put it this way. If the client wants the data gathered, then we need to invest in that. That means that if the contractor or the subcontractor needs to be able to use his cell phone on site using sheets and taking issues and taking photos and making recordings and maybe creating an RFI, request for information, or something like that, is there either somebody on site with such a license that can communicate back to the design team, or must we teach the subcontractor or the contractor themselves? And if we have multiple such projects, they will get used to it because they can use that technology across multiple projects. What's the advantage for them? They've done the work. They've done the work according to spec, according to some other quality assurance form that they had to fill in on the connected platform when they did the work. And then the inspector comes with quality assurance and says, yes, he's done his job. He's installed the doors correctly. He's installed the windows correctly. He's installed the air handling unit correctly. And yes, we did gather all the information that is necessary. Recently, I worked with somebody to get the QR codes for the installed assets correctly. You can go on site with your cell phone, take a picture of the QR code, and it gives you all the information, all the access to that equipment that you need. And you can attach and reference forms. You can attach files. You can attach whatever you want to that and record the information around that asset. All right? And that works towards the asset information model, where we are going from project information model, which is something that we do around about over here, the project information model that's getting put together over design, build, commission, handover, to the asset information model. And the asset information model is what we are using to manage the assets. They usually see them as two separate models or two separate databases. The one is the project information database, and the next one is the asset information database. So assets are something that the operators are very keen on. Bridging the data gap, exchange information request. There's the exchange information request. I'm just going through a few of the things that are available to help us to bridge this data, right? The ISO 19650 that came in, I first saw it in 2018 with Paul Shulcock from the UK at a conference here in Cape Town, where I first saw the ISO documentation. And the thing that got me excited about ISO, because I know ISO from my engineering studies, basically do what you say what you do, and be able to prove it. That's the ISO motto. Traceable, trackable, engineering based if you're an engineer, you probably have ISO compliance anyway. And in this case, we've got organizational management, ISO 9001. Within that, we've got asset and project management, ISO 55,000 and 21,500. And then within that, we've got the information management. And what's nice about this, it's global. It's global, all right? Most companies in the world are going to be following this. And that to me was just such a fantastic thing. So there are ways of structuring the information that we are sharing and that we are compiling towards some or other goal. What is Exchange Information Request? It's essentially saying we have a corporate or a governmental entity and we make the assumption that they know nothing about building, they need help, we get them an expert, they're on their side, on the owner's side, and then we are the supply chain, for argument's sake, and we are going to meet their requirements. If the owner says that the subcontractor will have a license, then the subcontractor won't be allowed on the project if they don't have that, because that is what the client is paying for. All right? So there's, well, we can have arguments about that as well. Is it something that they should pay for? But in any case, there usually is some or other investment that is needed. But as we saw, the money that you can make is also big. So why not? All right? It's owner-operated document. It binds the supply chain, which is very good from an information perspective. It reduces conflict of interest. In other words, if your employer is not compromised by, say, the principal agent, then the principal agent must meet the employer's requests and it cannot take shortcuts or be compromised in any way, which is good. Then states from the outside what is required on the project. That's if they've got an expert. Typically, this stipulates ISO 11650, yes, and typically requires a common data environment such as the Autodesk Construction Cloud, and that is also important. Right, so what is the Autodesk Construction Cloud? I'm putting here just the main things that are applicable. Most of the companies that are doing projects today are using Autodesk Collaborate Pro. That means they can co-author using Revit or create central models online, can clash detect, and they can use it in a timeliner so that they can have a secure and a one source of truth sharing of information, 3D designs, where elements are coded for downstream purposes. Those are the models. Records of information like metadata and tracked reviews and issues. That's stuff that is put together on the cloud, available on the cloud for reference. And for communication, we've mentioned the one source of truth, and then also clash detection. Right? So that's typically a design. On the design side, what do you do during design? Not a lot in terms of the actual building, apart from designing the building. It's pretty simple, it's pretty easy. There's not much going on apart from what you're used to anyway. The technology is generally accepted within at least the South African industry. It's mature. Lots of people know how to wield these tools and this platform. And by this stage, it is widely adopted within the industry. Then we've got the project information model, specifically the Autodesk Construction Cloud Build subscription. You can see here's the build. This might be new to many people. So we've got our sheets, our files, specifications, issues, forms, photos, RFIs, submittals, meetings, correspondence, schedules, assets, reports, members, bridge, and settings. Right. So I know this is like a really, really high level overview of these licenses, but it's extremely important to think about this as your traditional way of working is now getting, if you're not using this already, is getting replaced by one of these licenses where you are tracking and tracing everything to do with this project, including stuff like emails. Even in your correspondence, your project gets an email address, and any email or response to that email that has that email address copied in will be recorded on a platform that stores an infinite amount of information for that project. Well, nothing is infinite, but you've got an unlimited storage capacity on a secure Amazon server through your Autodesk subscription. But, all right, so what does it have? It's the Common Data Environment Subscription ACC Build. It's meant for communication. Think about it like a walkie-talkie or means of communication between the building site as well as the project manager as well as the design team. All right, so if we have Drawing sheets, models, and submittals are used during construction. We mentioned submittals that we can actually put or digitize all the information that we want or that we need around certain things. Like, you can go from stuff like tiles and bricks. Who's supplying it? What is the warranty? Who tested it? Da, 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 to complicated things like mechanical machinery, all right? Just to have the maintenance manuals and everything digitized. So we're collecting all the information in submittals that we can attach to things. Mobile apps to operate on site, even when disconnected. That's very important because sometimes in South Africa we don't have something like Starlink yet, and sometimes we lose our communications. But if you've got it synchronized to your phone, you can do what you need on phone. Take pictures, take photographs, create RFIs, create issues or whatever. Once you're back into communication, or in range of a repeater, then you can synchronize your changes back to the cloud. And then pre-construction activities, we don't like pre-construction activities because they normally waste money, nobody pays for it. So hopefully everybody designed correctly, so we don't have a lot of pre-construction activities such as requests for information, but it is there, we can actually use that. Then an asset register, or to track and attach references. We can create these assets from our model elements and identify them by QR code as well. Use them with our mobile app to, you can literally print a QR code, slap it onto a window, and then as the window is installed, you can track its progress or say what the progress is, and then also start collecting information about that. Photos and videos to attach as references. You can do that. What we know as snag lists. Forms of quality assurance and quality control. So a lot of the guys, they want to be able to pay their subbies, and so that's also one of the ways in which you can do that. And then we get to the asset information model. So the asset information model is created for the operations phase of the building. ACC Build is used to gather information such as assets as they are delivered and installed. Information is gathered through metadata and attachable references accessible through the mobile app on site. Digitized documentation is compiled in submittals and attached to assets. Photos and videos are also attached to assets. Point clouds are attached to assets for as-built information. So there's a lot that you can see over here. You can see that on the build side, this is now looking at a specific asset, and there we can see you can attach. What can you attach? And then there's also cost. Right. So there's a lot of things that are available there. Then we come to the interesting stuff now. All right. So you've been through this process. You've designed using a construction cloud. You have compiled the information during the construction phase, and now you've maybe created assets and you've got a lot of data for assets. Now what? Now, to my mind, this is the only, if you want, disconnect that I can see, although it's not a true disconnect, it's just, it takes a bit of work now to set up the Autodesk digital twin in something called Autodesk Tandem. It's not part of the Autodesk Construction Cloud, but it reads information from the Autodesk Construction Cloud. In other words, your models are just simply imported from Autodesk Construction Cloud. Your digitized data can be read as files. Right. So first of all, what is it? A digital twin is a virtual representation of a physical asset system or process that uses real-time data, simulation and analytics to mirror its real-world counterpart. Is constantly updated with data from sensors, allowing for the prediction of behavior and optimization of performance. Right, so that's the important thing. So think about Autodesk Tandem right at the end of your project. For those of us that use phasing within our Revit, you'll know what I mean. It's not an electrical term. It's got to do with, okay, we've got all the information that was there. Now we're doing a bit of renovation on the building or a new addition, and now we want to have that building in operation. Well, Autodesk Tandem only reads one phase, and so when you prepare the models in the CR or in the project model, just shift everything onto one phase. All right, so exactly like you would in the real world when you are doing a project and going from phase to phase, you would delete the stuff that you smashed out, put everything onto one phase in preparation for the new phase. Well, that workflow is perfectly suited in this case to having your Autodesk Tandem model. So digital twin is a virtual representation of a physical asset, a system or process that uses real-time data. Okay, we've already mentioned that. Basically transducers, measuring information from the building that we want. The digital twin is connected on Autodesk Tandem from information on ACC and then integrated with Eptura. Right, so Eptura is third-party software, and Eptura is now what Autodesk is partnering with. Right. It is part of Occubus, and it is there for the old ops that some of us might know, but essentially you're on site with your cell phone, something breaks, and you create a case so that somebody comes and fix whatever is broken. Or maybe you are the operator that has to maintain some other asset, and the same idea. All right. And then digital twins can interface with IoT transducers to monitor the key metrics in real time. There you can see, for instance, just a dashboard from one of the Eptura interfaces where there is 43 items ready for work and 53% work from project managers. Estimated work orders, January, February, December, March, and then you can see the maintenance plan and the assets and so on and so forth. So typical sort of maintenance platform. It says your Autodesk has partnered with Eptura for facilities management. Eptura leverages the digital twin on Tandem, so it uses the Tandem digital twin that you create. And then on the maintenance side, very importantly, planned maintenance, preventative maintenance, and then unfortunately sometimes reactive maintenance. Advancing transformations in the building operations lifecycle. The following are good opportunities for digital transformations of facilities and asset operations: healthcare, hospitals basically, higher education, universities and schools, and then corporate offices. Those would be your corporations. Usually within most governments, you'll find that there's quite a large healthcare and higher education sector. What we find in South Africa, we've maybe got a unique market here in South Africa that a lot of this is also private. And so one should be pitching this, should I say, or if you're part of the industry, say you're a principal agent or you are somebody that has the ability to interface with your corporate directors and so forth to influence the process or to get them to buy into the technology or to appoint you as their representative or to appoint you as the lead either on a project management side or on a design side, then those would be good places to start. However, you can also think about things like warehousing and factories. It also integrates quite well with the Autodesk mechanical side of the software, and so that is quite interesting. But usually bigger projects, corporations, governments, etc. So there's a lot of links. I know don't have a lot of time left, which is why I'm rushing a little bit. I was hoping to show you the platforms themselves, but I realize it's a very, very big topic. This is only, we're doing a very high level overview, a quick overview. There's the design and make with Autodesk digital transformation. This is quite recent. And if you are looking for these links, then you can always contact us afterwards. This is where I've got some of the information from. So you can see that this is very recent. It's 2025. There are also some other links, very interesting information. We have starting your digital transformation journey. These are some of the best things. It's quite old already, 2021, but it's still very, very relevant. All right, there you can see some interesting further information over there. The cost benefit across the entire project lifecycle. Okay, so you can see there's a lot of data that we are interested in, and that has relevance. This was an interesting thing. Let there be anything. I found that quite amusing myself, but this is basically also modern. What are we doing? Right. Lots of things that are happening. Interesting case studies, people that have adopted the technology, made money from it, success stories. There's your Tandem and Eptura. I'm currently busy trying to establish our working model in micrographics on Tandem, and I'm hoping to get going with that quite soon, but there are some good interfaces there as well. Autodesk and Eptura as well. Eptura, sorry. Seen this. There's also the old Eptura website itself without Autodesk mentioned. This is the software. Okay, so it's very much towards asset management, employee experience, facilities management, mobile technician app, preventative maintenance, space reservation, space planning, and visitor management. All right, so can you optimize your space usage? Tandem itself has a very, very good website. Oh, here we go. Come on. You can do it. All right, so this is the actual Tandem interface. They've got some good examples as well if you want to go and see and play with the examples to learn what they've done or create your own. There's some good webinars on this, some good information. This is actually where you now take your entire digital model and you can rip it apart by category or whatever, and you can populate that with information. And interestingly enough, what I discovered was that it is now, when you create a new project, it's got, you can definitely see what the thinking is, and that is that the Eptura parameters are already available within the platform. So Autodesk has built, just like they built ISO 19650 basically into the ACC Construction Cloud, the Autodesk Construction Cloud. So they've built the parameters. If you look at the Eptura asset data, right, and the Eptura workplace data, you can now map this across. So it's quite interesting. They've built the Eptura stuff into that. Then the other technology that is around this is the Autodesk Construction Cloud. That we've done quite a few webinars on. You can contact us at any time if you want to learn how this works or start your digital journey. Maybe start off with Autodesk Collaborate Pro, work your way into Build, then maybe into Tandem and Eptura, if that's the way that you want to do. There's the Autodesk University. There's a lot of information that's available on Autodesk University, where you can go and see the latest and greatest with regards to what the professionals around the world are doing to adopt this technology. And then we've got the Micrographics YouTube channel, our webinar series, and our blogs. Those are always available. But the point I want to make here is, just in conclusion, is a single person. You know, this technology it's meant for a collaborative environment where we are putting buildings together in teams. And ultimately that decision must be made by the owner or operator of that building. If you can get 75 to 100 years of profits from that building that you wouldn't have had otherwise, then this is the solutions. We offer those solutions. We offer training on those solutions for you to realize those profits. And that is really what it's all about, is ultimately the bottom line, making money from that asset, mining data to make money from that asset, looking after that asset in a proper way. So with that, I'd like to open up to any questions and answers. I know we haven't got a lot of time, but just see if anything comes through on the chat. And then again, if you have anything or you want to set up a meeting with us to discuss what you might need, then please contact us at Micrographics at www.mgfx.co.za or info@mgfx.co.za, and we will gladly set up a meeting with you to discuss. And it's one of my passions, just from a human being to want to make the world a better place, as well as being a technological junkie. I want to use nice tools, and the stuff is new and it's interesting, and artificial intelligence is going to play a role, and it's all connected, so it's fantastic. So until next time, I see there's no questions. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your attention. Be sure to subscribe or like and share. It helps us. And then if you, like I said, just contact us. If you want to have a meeting, we can introduce you to the technology and give you an estimation or help you adopt the technology and help you to transform. Have a great day further and a nice weekend, and look to see you soon.